Brenda here with week 5 check-in. I'm going to do my mandatory reporter video and just talk about a couple of things that I found interesting, as well as some of my experiences that I've had being a mandatory reporter over the last 20 years. For children, our law states that a report should be made at the very first availability, but within 48 hours. One thing that I found interesting in our law was that if I'm working with an adult and they disclose to me abuse that happened when they were a child, and I have reason to believe that there are current children at risk by that same alleged perpetrator, I'm required to make a report on that. For adult, there's a couple things that are a little different. For adults, referrals can be made for financial exploitation, which is probably one of the most common ones out here in Washington State. Another thing you can report on adults for that you wouldn't with children is self-neglect. And self-neglect is probably one that's pretty difficult to substantiate for, just basically because our law provides, adults have rights, and it's hard to take away those rights even if an adult is making bad decisions for themselves. So it has to be something really, really severe for self-neglect. And when I worked in a nursing home, the facility had directed the social worker, there was only 2 of us there, directed us to be the ones to call in any reports to Adult Protective Services or CPS or whatever we needed to. And, they did that based on, they felt we were the most qualified to report to the state on, the allegations. But also we were responsible for doing the investigations, the internal investigations. And so, I had to call in so many. And, basically, the state here, you know, even though, maybe I didn't believe some of these allegations, it didn't matter. If a report was made to me that an adult or child was being abused, neglected, exploited, anything like that, I had to make a referral in. And you just, all we can count on is that the people doing the investigations, CPS or APS, that, these are trained individuals and their goal is to get to the truth and not to break up families, but to resolve issues. And with children, especially the goal is to try and keep the family unit together no matter what. So it can be really hard to remove children. And sometimes that works out well, and sometimes, we see in the news where that hasn't worked out very well. I had to do, when I worked in the nursing home, new staff had an orientation, and I would have 15 minutes with them to just talk about mandatory reporting because they were all mandatory reporters. And a couple of things that I would tell them is that, sometimes all they're going to have to go on is their reputation. And, because people will say things that, are not going to be true. So they really need to protect themselves. And some, clients sometimes can get very abusive and people take that personally. And, that's one thing I've kind of learned, it's hard, but, you can't take those, the client striking out at you, you can't take it personally. At that time, you got to remain calm and don't let your emotions get the best of you at that time. You can leave the situation, which is probably wise if you feel like it's getting to you. But things can go bad very quickly. And, I'd explain to these staff, unfortunately, with the nature of the work that they do, they are at risk for allegations against them. So, and sometimes, depending on the allegation, I would also have to contact the police. And, regardless, like I said, regardless whether I believe the allegation or not, that wasn't for me to decide. It was for me to make the report. And as long as I'm looking out for the well-being of the client, and that's my goal, um, that's what I would do. So, all right, take care, everyone, and hope you all have a great week. Bye.